Okay, let's unpack this. You walk down the street almost anywhere in the world, and, well, you see it right. That storefront that's empty, or maybe a shopping district that just doesn't quite have the same buzz it used to. Physical stores struggling against online shopping. I mean, it's a story that feels incredibly familiar. It's a global challenge. But is that really the whole picture? What is the actual future for brick and mortar? How can a physical place, compete when convenience is just a click away? That's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to explore how physical stores might not just survive, but maybe even thrive. And we're drawing some really sharp insights from recent trends and strategies, particularly coming out of China's retail scene.
That's right. We've been digging into quite a bit of material focused on what's happening over there. And the situation in China, it really highlights this global challenge for physical retail in a, well, pretty stark way. But the innovative responses we're seeing, they offer potential lessons for everyone, really. Our mission today is to basically pull out the most important takeaways about, the pressures these businesses face and the surprising ways they're trying to shape their future.
So stick with us for this deep dive. We're trying to get past that simple idea of online killed offline.
Hmm.
We want to understand what's really changing and what it means for the whole idea of, well, just going to a store.
Yeah.
So let's set the scene a bit. It's undeniable e-commerce has just fundamentally shifted things for physical retail
Yeah.
globally.
It really has. And the analysis we looked at shows that in China, this pressure, it got especially intense around the late 2010s. And it hit all kinds of physical places, independent shops, huge shopping malls, even supermarkets. The pandemic and the lockdowns, well, obviously, they just amplified this massively, made the challenge totally unavoidable. The scale of it is pretty eye-opening, too. Estimates suggest out of around 66 million physical stores in China, about 20 million, that's nearly a third,
Yeah.
went out of business just in 2021 alone.
Wow, 20 million. In 1 year. That's staggering. And yet, you might walk down the street, like you said, and see a new store pop up where an old one closed.
Yeah.
So the actual number of storefronts might not look drastically different on the surface sometimes, but what the analysis points to is the feeling, right? That specific kind of vibrant, almost over-the-top heat you might have felt 10 or 20 years ago that seems to be noticeably diminished.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a pattern, a global one we've kind of been seeing for about a decade as e-commerce grew up.
Mhm.
But you're right, the pandemic just accelerated it and laid it bare everywhere. What became really clear is that any physical store that's just sort of passively waiting for customers, well, it just doesn't really have a viable future in this new environment.
Okay, so if waiting isn't the answer, how do they fight back proactively, I mean?
Yeah.
We heard that back in 2016, Jack Ma introduced this idea, this new retail concept, where online and offline had to merge.
Right. And our sources basically identified two main paths, two strategies for physical stores to make that happen and, find a way forward. The first is really about integrating with O2O, that's online to offline. The second path, and this seems increasingly critical, is about creating an experience, something unique to the physical store where actually being there becomes the main product. So let's look at that first path, O2O. The analysis talks about two main types. First, there's Diogeia O2O. That translates roughly to home. It's the familiar stuff, getting goods or services delivered to your house. Think food delivery platforms or maybe a local store setting up its own delivery service. And the second type is Diodian O2O. That means to store. Yeah. These are services where you use an app or website to do something related to your visit at the physical place, like booking a restaurant table online, placing an order ahead for pickup so you don't wait, or even using your phone to order once you're already inside the cafe or whatever.
Okay, so Deodian and Deogia. Even if the terms are specific, the actual practices, like using an app for delivery or booking online, ordering ahead,
Yeah.
that feels pretty widespread everywhere now, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And the data backs that up too, right? So you
Yeah.
mentioned a study in China showing usage was like 74% nationally in 2021, and even higher, 81% in big cities.
Exactly. It's just becoming how we interact with businesses. But, and this is a really critical point highlighted in the analysis, a major pitfall. Simply adding an O2O service, that's not enough. The biggest mistake businesses make is keeping their old model exactly the same and just sort of bolting on the new tech. Think about a shop that adds mobile payments but doesn't change how they do their checkout or their books. Suddenly, they're juggling cash and digital separately. It just means more work, more chances for errors, higher costs, maybe with fees and double handling. So the core message is You have to actually rebuild your business model around the new O2O system. That's how you really evolve and get the benefits. And looking at the trends, it's interesting. While the to-store O2O, the Diodia and stuff, spread faster at first, probably because it was easier to set up, it's the to-home delivery side, Diodia, like stores doing their own local e-commerce, that's actually seen stronger growth more recently.
Interesting. So with this O2O stuff happening and the pressure to not just wait around, how are different types of actual businesses doing? The analysis gave some examples, right?
Yeah, it did. Restaurants, for instance, are under intense pressure. We saw big, well-known chains like Haidilao, famous for hot pot, closing like 300 stores. Popular tea brands like Chai Yu's also had to shrink. The analysis suggests their super fast expansion might have been more about grabbing locations, getting mind share everywhere, rather than just meeting existing demand. So when foot traffic vanished, well, that strategy just wasn't sustainable. They had to make cuts. But investment is still flowing into certain food areas. Alcohol, tea, noodles, coffee, and bakeries seem to be focuses.
Okay, so restaurants are tough. What about shopping malls?
Also described as being in a pretty serious situation. Even though hundreds of big new malls opened recently, many delayed from 2020, the market was already kind of oversaturated before COVID. The shiny new malls might pull people in, but the older ones or those in less great locations, they're really struggling. One survey found about a fifth of the malls they looked at were unprofitable, and their losses had jumped like 15 times compared to the previous year.
Ouch. And then there were those experience stores, like karaoke.
Yeah, businesses built purely around an in-person activity. Things like KTV karaoke and those interactive mystery game places, Jubensha, they saw huge growth before the pandemic. But then they got hit really hard because, well, they involved groups indoors for long periods. Karaoke venues, their members were apparently cut in half over 7 years, so yeah, they suffered badly. But the analysis also sees them as potentially strong areas once foot traffic really comes back, precisely because their whole product is that physical experience.
That's a perfect transition, actually, because that leads us right into the second path you mentioned, which sounds maybe even more critical now. Creating that experience you absolutely cannot get online.
Exactly. And there's some interesting data on this, looking at payment transaction values. The businesses showing the highest potential, ranked by value per payment, are dominated by places where you simply have to be there in person. Surprisingly, eyebrow salons came out really high. Apparently, they're even attracting more men now.
Eyebrow salons, really.
Yeah. And department stores are also high up there, not just for buying stuff, obviously, but because the whole experience of browsing, trying things on, the service you get, that environment still really matters to people. And it really highlights the contrast, doesn't it? If what you sell can easily just be delivered to someone's home or accessed online, you need a really compelling reason for them to bother making the trip to your store. Businesses focus purely on selling basic goods or simple food items. They need to build an experience around it. Think of a bar, right? You're not just buying alcohol. You're paying for the atmosphere, maybe the skill that goes into a fancy cocktail, the social buzz. The experience itself is the product.
Which just drives home that point.
Yeah.
Just adding O2O features isn't the whole answer. You have to layer on experiences that are impossible to replicate online. Otherwise, yeah, why would I go to your store? It's just less convenient than ordering from my couch if I have to travel there myself.
Absolutely. And while creating that compelling experience sounds straightforward, the analysis makes a good point. It's not easy. It can't just be, based on the owner's personal taste or what they think is cool. It really demands a deep understanding of who your customer actually is and what kind of experience they genuinely want. And that leads directly to the second major recommendation from the analysis for physical stores. Get crystal clear on your target customer. You need to analyze who's coming in now, figure out who you want to attract, build detailed profiles, personas for them, and then figure out what experiences would specifically resonate with that group. The analysis actually identifies 4 key consumer groups that are seen as driving future growth in China. Each needs a really tailored approach. First up is Gen Z. We're talking post-95, so early 20s, basically digital natives. They might not have huge incomes yet, but they spend a lot on their hobbies. One survey showed, 2/3 of them work part-time. They're comfortable using digital credit, those buy now, pay later type services. And their spending often revolves around really specific hobby interests. Things called sanking culture, which includes stuff like JK uniforms, traditional Hanfu clothing, Lolita fashion, and also spending within their close-knit social circles, often around shared interests like anime, comics, games, novels, ACGN. It's like basic knowledge for them. They often have multiple hobbies, and crucially, they use these hobbies to connect socially. This leads to unique meetups like Tampao Hui, people wearing similar niche clothing styles getting together. Sometimes they even rent private rooms in restaurants or KTV spots for this. And it's not just women, men get involved too.
Okay, so very specific interests, very social. How do stores tap into that?
Well, a perfect example is using intellectual property, or IP, collaborations, like the KFC and Genshin Impact game tie-in. To get a limited edition badge, you had to go into KFC, order a specific meal, and say this slightly awkward phrase at the counter, Uying, which apparently means something like meeting in another world, enjoy the deliciousness together.
Huh. Okay, I could see how that might be slightly embarrassing.
Right. And the analysis actually points to the potential awkwardness or embarrassment as part of the unique store experience. It makes it memorable, shareable online. And you see similar things like a tea shop making people sing a jingle for free ice cream, or a restaurant chain having secret phrases for gifts. These campaigns are often designed to create buzz on social media. You have to check online to find out the latest challenge or phrase. And because Gen Z often goes out in groups, doing these slightly silly things together becomes a fun shared activity. The core idea is making the act of buying fun itself, or making the purchase unlock some kind of future fun experience.
Got it. Okay, who's the next group?
The new middle class. Roughly speaking, households earning between maybe 30,000 and 150,000 US dollars a year. This group has grown incredibly fast, over 100 million people back in 2018. They're comfortable, but they're very discerning. They might own something high-end, like from Hermes, but they'll also shop at Uniqlo. Their choices aren't just about price or showing off status. It's more about brand history, quality, the philosophy behind the brand. They'll choose a certain coffee or organic food because they understand the reasoning behind it. They aren't easily swayed by just surface appearances. So reaching them means communicating genuine value and the company's story, often through social media where they research things.
And how does the experience angle work for them?
A really standout example discussed is the Beijing SKP shopping mall. It's described as feeling less like a traditional mall and more like an art museum that you can also shop in. The whole place has a unified design theme, something like exploring a digital and analog future as if you're Mars colonists. Products are curated to fit this theme. The presentation is all integrated, so the experience of just being there, walking around and shopping within this immersive art gallery-like space, that is the actual product. People choose to buy things there, even if they know they could probably find the same item cheaper online because the visit itself has real value to them. It's a destination.
Wow, that sounds intense. Okay, who's the third group?
Third group is hot moms, so young mothers. They have two main drivers identified in the analysis. First, a need for personal time for shopping, self-care, maybe studying. And second, a strong desire for their child to be actively engaged, often with an eye towards early education or skills training, especially if they're planning to return to work. This has led to the growth of something called the Luua service. It's basically supervised play or learning centers, but crucially, they're located within or right next to retail spaces or cultural centers. They're designed to occupy and actively engage the child, maybe even with some educational activities while the mother is nearby doing her own thing. The source notes made a slightly unusual comparison, likening it to training a pet, but the point is active engagement, not just babysitting. This creates a really powerful one-stop need for the mother, a single place where both her needs and her child's needs can be met at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense. A one-stop solution. Okay, and the final group.
Finally, the silver generation. In China, this group is often defined as 45 plus, partly because retirement ages can be earlier, sometimes 50 or 55, maybe even 45 with early retirement options. So they have potentially very long retirement lives ahead and often decent financial stability thanks to pensions. Their typical day, according to the analysis, might involve morning karaoke, going out for lunch, and maybe afternoon square dancing in a park. This makes them really valuable customers, especially during off-peak hours when stores are usually quieter. Before COVID, they were apparently big domestic tourists, but now they're frequenting local facilities much more often.
Right, so bringing it back. Connecting these different customer needs, we keep hearing this idea of the one-stop station. Can you recap that?
Yeah, Yuzanchi. It's basically about creating a facility or maybe even a coordinated area that bundles multiple services together, specifically tailored to appeal to one of those target groups. The goal is to let them accomplish several things they want or need in just one visit, making it super convenient and appealing. We already mentioned Beijing SKP doing it with art and high-end shopping for the new middle class. For Gen Z, you see things like esports hotels popping up, combining gaming facilities with lodging, or even niche things like cinema-style massage, where you get a massage while watching a movie. For the hot moms, it's those malls or cultural centers that integrate the Lua child engagement services. And for the silver generation, you could imagine sports facilities adding karaoke rooms or restaurants, or maybe existing local businesses like KTVs, restaurants, gyms, maybe even care facilities, finding ways to link up and offer a kind of combined package or experience.
So pulling it all together, the message from the analysis seems pretty clear.
Yeah, I think so. It really boils down to a two-pronged approach being necessary for physical stores now. You absolutely need to implement O2O services efficiently. For the convenience factor, that's becoming table stakes. But just as fundamentally, maybe even more so, you have to create unique, compelling experiences that give people a reason to physically come to your space.
And the analysis was really forceful on this point, wasn't it? That the old model, just relying on natural foot traffic, people just wandering by your store, that's basically over. Physical stores have to actively drive customer traffic now by offering something specific, something desirable, something that makes people consciously decide, yes, making this trip is worth my time.
Exactly. Now, obviously, building a massive multi-service one-stop facility like Beijing SKP from the ground up, that's a huge investment, takes a lot of capital. But the analysis also suggests leveraging existing community structures might be a way forward too. They point to models like Japan's traditional shopping streets, the Shaodong-gai. The idea is that local, independent businesses on a street could potentially cooperate, coordinate their offerings to create a kind of collective one-stop experience tailored to their specific community, particularly for segments like that growing silver generation. They actually mention the Sugamo Jizadori Street in Tokyo as a successful example of a shopping street that's thriving precisely because it caters so well to this older demographic.
Hmm.
So the future isn't something physical stores can just wait around for. They really have to actively build it.
It's really fascinating, isn't it? Seeing how that intense competition in China is forcing such rapid retail evolution, and how many of these strategies, these ideas, could really offer blueprints or at least inspiration for physical businesses facing similar pressures, well, anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave people with, drawing from that core idea, this need to proactively create customer flows, to offer a specific experience rather than just relying on existing foot traffic.
Yeah.
How might you, listening now, start looking at the local shops and services in your own neighborhood differently? What specific experience do they currently offer that you genuinely can't get online? And maybe more interestingly, what kind of unique, tailored experience could they potentially offer that would make you really want to make the trip? Because the future of physical stores, it isn't guaranteed. It really is something that's being built one distinct experience at a time.
That's a really powerful thought to consider. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this deep dive.